Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today back to working on the Tally-Ho Capstan project that we've been working on now for quite some time, and we are actually getting into the short rows on getting this thing finished up, I think. I've still got quite a few things to do, and today what I want to work on is really kind of get this capstan drum finished up. And the last things that we need to do, there are a couple of holes here in the side of the skirt that goes around the bottom of this that have to do with some little dogs. This is a little lever dog. This is actually going to catch in some little places on the base. It acts as a ratchet so that when you're winching on this drum, basically this is upside down. So think of gravity as pulling up. It's going to be pulling this thing in, and there's some little dogs. Basically, it'll come on across. It'll drop over there, and of course gravity will pull it down, and it will not allow it to spin backwards. And you can spin this thing around 180 degrees depending on which direction you're going. You just flip this little pawl to direction that you want to, and again it kind of makes a ratchet base so that it will not allow it basically makes the drum only turn in one direction, or at least by the spacing of those teeth that it catches on, so that if you kind of slip or lose and it pulls back, if you pull that anchor up, boom, it's going to hit a stop, and it's not going to drop all the way back down to the ground. At least that's the hope. So to get this back mounted in here, this has to have a little pin that's going to go into this hole that this thing can rotate on. Now we are kind of modifying the design of this a little bit just because of the changes we've made, putting this gear inside of here. Got a plan to do that. There's also another little lever over here that we're going to be working on later, and it basically is a little stop to keep this thing from coming all the way down. So there's a little pawl that you can put in here, and it will kind of put it in a position where there's the ratchet cannot engage at all. And we're going to have to make that and put it in as well. But we're going to start with this one here. And what I need to do is make a couple of pins that these things are going to rotate on. And we're going to have to come in here and actually drill and do some tapping and stuff to get these in place. So I've got a design for that part right here. I'm going to zoom in here and show you this. And we're going to go over to the lathe and actually make a couple of these pins. And then we'll figure out what we need to do for the other pins as well. All right, we're over here at the lathe, and we're ready to start working on these. These need to stick out about 3 inches. I give you plenty of room to work with there. And just so you kind of see what we're going to be making, this is the little drawing that I drew for this. It's going to be a shoulder bolt, 3/4. That's the section that the little pawl is going to rotate on. This is the little section that 11/16 that goes up into the casting, and then that'll be threaded 1/2 inch 20 up in there, and we'll just form a head on the end. I got all my dimensions that I need, so let's see if we can knock this thing out. All right, we'll start by facing the end. Zero out my digital readout in the x-axis, and I need to go in 1.725, make a mark right there. That's where I'm going to be turning up to a shoulder, and I need to turn that down to 3/4 of an inch. We're starting out at about 1 1/16 if I remember right. We'll just take 100 thousandths here and turn down to that line. All right. Take another 100. Check that diameter. We are at 875, right on the money. And that's right where my digital readout's out as well. We're going to 750. So I'm gonna take another 100. another measurement. All right, we're at 0.774. I'm going to 750, so we got 24 thousandths to dial in. Just going to dial it in right on the digital readout, 0.750. Go to my depth, which was, what was it, 1.775. .725. There we go. I want it to be just a little bit undersized so that it'll have a little bit of room to rotate on. And that's going to work just fine. Perfect. All right. So now I need to turn my 11/16 inch shoulder, and it needs to go in 0.825 right there. 11/16 is 0.6875. All right, now I need to turn 1/2 inch diameter for the thread on the bottom, and that needs to come in 1/2 inch right there. Turn up right to that shoulder at 1/2 inch. Right there, and turn it out. Okay. Start that there. We'll break some corners here on the other ones. And I think I'm just going to single point thread this. 20 threads per inch. And here we go. Double check that thread pitch. 20 threads per inch. All right, let's do it. Put a little cutting oil on there. Feed in a little bit more. I don't have a 1/2 inch nut to try this with, but I do have a 1/2 inch 20 die. So I'm just going to run it up on there. I've got it pretty darn close to size because I'm just turning this by hand, and that should clean those threads up right to the shoulder there, and we should be right on size. All right, we're part this off, and we'll form the head in a separate operation. Now we need to part this off. Again, I'm just going to come in here and I'll use this rule to make the outside, this edge of my cutter, flush with the end, and I'm going to zero that out on my digital readout, and we'll dial into the total length of the bolt, which is 2.1 inches. So let me just dial that in on the digital readout right there. With my parting tool, I'll just part this right off. I'm just going to let that fall. There. I've changed my mind on how I'm going to do these. It's much better. I think instead of trying to round that head over, I'm just going to leave it kind of square like this. But I do want to clean that outside diameter up. I'm just going to barely clean it up here. A little bit more. Didn't quite clean it up. I'm just going to use the back angle there to just relieve that edge there a little bit. We'll switch cutters. Chamfer this top edge. And I'm going to chamfer a little bit on the heavy side. And that is done. Do the same thing to the other one, and we'll have our shoulder bolts ready to go. I'm over here now at the horizontal boring mill, and this is where we're going to be kind of continuing on this project. So the next step is I need to actually mount the stud in here that this dog is going to ride on. So that's going to basically hang on that little piece, and that's going to screw in to a hole we're going to drill and tap right here. But I need to make sure everything stays in alignment. And the nice thing about this machine is I've got a spindle that's running perpendicular to the base, or parallel to the base, however you want us to call it. I can drill in at a 90-degree angle to whatever I've got over here. So we've got the capstan basically clamped down to the table. Again, there's a rod that goes down to a T-nut in here, and I'm just clamping it straight down. And I did take a little bit of time setting this up, where basically I've got this thing running where the center of this is running through this, what will become at least running parallel to the center here. And the way I did that is I used this big center finding tool. I basically put it on the back side of the capstan, got it lined up between the hole in the back and the hole in the front, where it was right through the center of both of those. I could actually see it was going over the center of the hole. And I just took my spindle here on the boring mill. Let me show you. I ran it out as far as I could go, and I was able to come in here and line this up so that it was parallel to it. So I've got it set up. It's not set up on the height, it's not set up on the center yet, but it is set up where the center line of this hole is running parallel to the spindle on the machine. So we should be able to get in there and drill this thing out and have a nice hole that's going straight through the center of the part. Now what I need to do is actually get it set up to drill and actually get the spindle set up on the center of the hole, which is a whole nother thing we got to do, and that's what we're about to do right now. So let me pull the spindle back in, and I'm going to start by finding the center of this hole. And to do that, I'm using a transfer punch. You guys have seen me use these before. I've got a whole set of these basically in fractional increments that go from I don't know, small ones, probably 1/16 of an inch, up to 1 inch. So this is the one that basically matches this hole right here. And when I put that in there, it's going to line itself up on the outside here, and you've got a center punch in the center that will punch a center punch mark right in the center of that existing hole. So these are really handy for doing, layout where you got to line something up. You can use these to drop through a hole in one part into the other, and when you punch them and drill them, your holes line up. Works really good. So I'm going to go around the back side here. And we're just going to come in here, get that lined up. All right, now I've got a center punch mark right in the center of that hole that we need to line up on. I ended up just putting a little pointer in here to kind of see where I'm going. This is going to help me kind of get this lined up. I'm going to pull that up a little bit. So now it just comes adjusting everything on here to get it where it needs to be. So I need to lower the head down. All right, I got the head dropping down here. I'm just using the power feed on it to make it go a little bit faster. A bit easier on the cranking anyway. I have to fine adjust it by hand. All right, that's close to where we want to be. Turn that off. And just crank this out by hand, I think. We'll come out there. Feed that in a little bit more. Pretty darn close right there. All right, that's pointer now is just right in the center. I've got my height and my table, my X and Y, I guess you'd call it on this machine, or maybe Z. I'm not sure what axis you'd consider that. But anyway, we've got it lined up right where I want to drill that hole. So next, I think it's actually to drill it. So we've got a 29/64" drill bit in there, which is the size we need for 1/2" 20 threads to tap. And I think we are ready to drill this. I will note that I have put on here a little mark with a Sharpie pen about right there. I can see it. It tells me how deep I need to go. I don't want to go all the way through. This machine's kind of noisy, but we're going to go ahead and let her drill that out. Just doing this by hand. I got a tap follower here I'm going to put in to help me kind of guide that tap in. And this is a 1/2" 20 tap, which is the size we need for this. All right, so this tap follower, if you haven't seen one before, it's a little spring-loaded point that goes in the center of that tap, and it just keeps everything aligned. So now when I run this in there, it just makes sure that that tap is going to run nice and straight right down that hole that we've got drilled. Once it kind of gets started, we're good. We're going to go in until we kind of get to the bottom of the hole. All right, that feels like the bottom. I'm going to back this out. Now we were using a taper tap, starter tap, so this end is kind of tapered to kind of get pointed started in there. To finish that hole out, to get threads down clear through the bottom, I've got what's called a bottoming tap. This one here basically doesn't have really hardly any taper on there at all. So you have to run the taper tap first, and then you run this one in, and it will get those threads cleaned up all the way down to the bottom of the hole. So it's going to start by just going down that same tapped hole that we have already put in there. And like I said, when it gets down there to where that taper's at, it will cut those last few little threads, and it's cutting right there. And that feels like the bottom. So we'll come back out. All right, I think we've got our hole drilled and tapped. We'll get that cleaned out and see if we can put the little shoulder bolt in there to hold that dog into place. So I'm just going to use some Loctite 290 thread locker here to make sure that this bolt doesn't go anywhere. So we'll just put a little bit on those threads. All right, we'll take our dog here, which will go in like this, and we'll screw all this together. And I'm just going to use a pair of pliers to kind of grip a hold of that and help screw it in. I like it. Now, of course, gravity's holding this up. Normally this is upside down, so gravity would be dropping it down, and basically it will flip over one side or the other to work at that ratcheting mechanism. And there you go. You can see both of these pieces now. That's the first one we did. And of course, the second one here on the other side, ready to go. All right, there's a hole for the other pin that we got to do. And like I said, we got to make those and I get the pins made to go in there, and we'll get those drilled out over here on the boring mill as well. So right here, you can see where the little bronze lever is that is used to disengage this. Again, remember, all this is upside down. So normally gravity is pulling it this way, and there's a dog plate that's going to engage in. But when you want to disable it, what we had here was in this pinhole was a little bronze lever. This is what's left of it. There's two of them, one on each side. I've got both of them. However, both of these, the ends were broken off. And what would happen is when you flip this over to that stop right there, it would come down and the dog would hit that, and it would prevent it from going down where it could engage in the dog plate. So again, these need to be probably a ½ inch longer than what they are to kind of support that dog plate up. And you could just flip this around the other direction when you wanted it to engage, and that would allow that to go down and engage the dog plate. So, and then too, there was a couple of pins that were in here that these rotated on. We're gonna have to remake the pins. The original pins were made out of steel. We're gonna make these out of bronze, and we're gonna make these right here out of bronze. Now, I'm sure that these little levers were originally cast. However, my game plan is I've just got some bronze material here. We're just gonna make them out of that. And my game plan is that we'll just come in here and basically lay that on there, trace it out. I'll go cut it out on the bandsaw, probably just do a little grinding and whatever to make it fit. This is a little bit thicker than what we need, and then that lever arm is bent, but we can easily bend that once we get it in place. So anyway, I'm gonna massage a couple of these out of a piece of brass, or bronze rather, and go from there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead now and just kind of center that over it. And I'm just gonna use a Sharpie pen and just kind of trace the outline of the original. And I want these to be about a ½ inch longer than So we'll just kind of I'm over here at the vertical mill now, and I need to thin this material up a little bit. You can see how thick the original piece is. I need to take about 150 thousandths off the total thickness, and then some more off of this area down here where the blade's going to be. So probably should have done this before I cut everything out, but we're already where we are, so I'm just going to go ahead. Hopefully this will hold just fine over here in the mill, and we can mill that down. We started out with a blank that looks about like this, and this is kind of what I finished up with. That's with some grinding, some filing, some sanding, etc., just kind of shaping that around, and I think that's going to work. I need to do the same thing to this other piece over here, and then we can look at getting these things mounted. All right, I got my mounting studs done here, so this will fit up over the head there, and let that rotate. We got a shoulder there for it to go on, and then this is going to be drilled and tapped 17/6 or 7/16 inch 20 threads per inch. So let's get up to the capstan drum, get those holes drilled and tapped, and we can get these installed, and I think we'll have the drum pretty much finished up. This is a regular taper tap here. We'll go to the bottom of the hole, back out, and then we'll go back in with a bottoming tap to get us where we have threads clear down to the bottom of the hole. Loctite on here, thread locker. And that will keep our dog from coming in, and it's in that position. And we can flip it out of the way over here to the other way. We'll let that set up. That should do it. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. And with that, guys, I think that our capstan drum here is finished. We've got the new gypsy ring in, we've got the new gear ring in, we've got our dogs all attached. This is all ready to go back over there. The only thing that's really left to be done to it is painting, and we're probably gonna be sending this out to get it professionally painted. So that'll be coming up later on as well. So, and actually, I think all that's really left for us to finish up on this capstan is the new casting top that we had cast. We're gonna have to get that machined and ready to go on here, but I think that's the last piece that we need to have this puzzle put together. Still got a lot of work to do, but we're getting really closer to the finish line than we have been at any point so far, and hopefully not much more into this. So guys, with that, that's gonna be a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon up there to get notifications when new videos are posted. And as always, a big, huge thank you to the supporters of the site who support via Patreon and PayPal. There's links for that down in the description below if that's something you can help out with, because it really does enable me to take the time to shoot the videos, to bring the content to you guys, which does require a lot of extra time and effort. And with that, guys, we're going to sign off. We will catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.